Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle. I'm your host once again. Beautiful but windy day out here in the Superstition Mountains. Yes, here we are again. So the weather's perfect. We're in the mid 70s, but we got a wicked wind building up for this afternoon. So before we get any further, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. If you want to leave a comment, go to the About section. You'll find the t-shirts, Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, Legend of the Superstition Mountains, black, gray, long sleeve, short sleeve. Got it done. Now we're on today's stuff. Spending a nice day out here in the Superstitions. Always like doing and telling the stories out here. This story goes back, I believe, around 2004, maybe 2005. And what happened is a guy had got in touch through some forums and messaging. And I don't know if he got a hold of me or Randy Wright. He got a hold of one of us and got with both of us, and there's this thing he'd found. And it was this carved cross, and it had a cross inside of it. And it was kind of something different, and he talked about it. And it was carved into this flat rock where he felt the rock had been shaped. And he said it was back in this canyon back over by Whiskey Springs, and had been in this brush. And he cleared the brush out, and he said it was very cool, but he didn't know what it meant. And we were very interested in it at the time. Wind's just something fierce, ain't it? It's gonna move the camera. So he wanted us to go out. For whatever reason, Randy couldn't make it. Now, it could have been work. I don't think this is too early for when he broke his foot. So I think he just couldn't make it. And I was gonna go out. We're gonna say the guy's name is Joe for today. Wasn't his name. But nice guy, kind of went back and forth with us, said he'd meet us out. So we're gonna meet at Peralta parking lot. We're gonna go back up into the mountains. So we met on that day, and he seemed kind of a regular guy, and he's like, yeah, I was out. He wanted to go out, and from books he'd read and various materials and articles he'd heard about, he wanted to go to different places in Superstitions. So what he was doing was he was going out in the mountains, and he was spending time at these different locations he read from books, and then looking around those locations. Now, I don't know if he was looking for the Lost Dutchman or what he was looking for, but he was kind of just searching. And he said, as we walked in, he really explained the story. He said he had brought a camera. Back in those days, we didn't have a lot of the digital cameras we have today. And he had a camera, and the batteries had worn out. He'd been taking pictures. He was almost out of film, but then the batteries went dead, and he didn't have spare batteries. So he didn't get a picture of the thing. But he had pictures of when he went in and some of the stuff, and he brought a few of those. We looked at them at the truck, hit the trail. We start walking in. He's a nice guy. He's talking, we're talking. And as we get in, it's one of those typical things. He's less familiar with everything the further he gets in the mountains. So we went around, went up by Miner's Needle, heading up that way. We got to a certain point, and he was like, yeah, I went this way. And then he got vague. And then he was like, well, why don't you go this way? I'll go this way. And he described the area as like a notch. Not like a saddle, but a notch. There was a couple, like the dirt or the mountain or something had a notch in it and a V. And you walk through there. And it wasn't like a narrow V or anything. He said it was just a spot I had to walk through between these two spots. And then I got on this other side, and it was over here on my right and all this. He was very detailed about it. So I went out, and we get out to that area, and we'd search, and nothing. And we get out, we'd search some more, and be nothing. So then we finally took lunch. And I'm kind of like starting, I'm not disappointed, because I realize the guy's not familiar with the mountains. So I'm like, why don't we just kind of take our time? Let's go back to where you remember something seems familiar. And then we'll step by step just kind of see if we can get us back into kind of the right area, because he's not sure if we're in the right area. So we backtracked a little till he said, yeah, okay, I remember this, and I remember this. And then we started moving forward again, and he would kind of creep along. And then he was pretty sure we're in the same area, but he couldn't find this notch. And we kept looking around. So then finally he said, well, I'm going to start looking around out here. and I'm going to find this spot. And I said, okay. And I said, don't get too far. Stay within shouting distance, and I'll look around and see if there's anything I see. I don't know what I'm looking for. So I started walking around and looking, and then I start working my way back towards the direction he went, and I'm not finding him. And I'm kind of looking around, and I'm thinking, well, I don't even hear him out here. So I walk around. After an hour or two, I yell out his name, which wasn't Joe, but I yelled Joe. But I didn't really yell Joe. And I'm not getting any response. And I'm kind of like, and it was a much nicer day than today. The wind wasn't blowing. But back then if you ever watch the old ones, like the stuff I did with Randy Wright, I always ponytailed my hair back then. But maybe today I should have. I'm like, where'd the guy go? Did he fall down? Did he get hurt? Is he lost? So I'm looking around, then I'm like, and this is like early days, you might have a flip phone. There was no service out here. So I thought, okay, I got to get back to the parking lot. And in those days I had my Bronco, so I got to get back to the Bronco. And I'm going to have to check, and I don't know whether to wait it out or get a hold of the sheriff's department because I don't know where this guy is. And I hated to leave the area, but I thought I need to get back because we only brought a day's worth of water just to be out there and come back same day trip. So I get back, I'm working my way back, and I'm looking down the trail, and I'm looking back, and I feel horrible, you know, that whole time as each step is like, I feel guilty that he's going to show back up and I'm not going to be there, and he's going to be like, you deserted me. So I'm working my way back. I get back, and he had been parked right next to me when we left. I get back, and his car's gone. He had got out there, and I guess he'd made up the story as best I could figure it, even though he could defend himself and come up and in the comments say, hey, I'm really the real Joe. But I took it as he got out there and then realized he didn't really know what he was talking about and got someone out there who knew the mountains, and he probably could sense that I was a little frustrated that he seemed to have no clue what he was looking for. I thought the whole thing was interesting primarily because everything he described seemed more like a Templar cross. And this is long before I ever heard about Bob Ward and some of these guys that were into the Templar stuff out here. So to me, it was like very unusual the way it was supposed to be shaped and the way he talked about it. But I get back, there's nothing there. And I'm just looking at the spot. And of course, I realize I don't have to call the sheriff's department because he got out of the mountains long before I did, got in his car and went home. Didn't even leave me a note on the windshield. We do this for children as well, so I won't say what I thought at the time. But I got back in, and I don't know if Randy even would remember this guy or the whole story because nothing came of it. But I had his phone number, so then I left messages, you know, hey, just calling, make sure you're okay, kind of understand, you know, you get out there, things weren't going well, you just give me a call, tell me you're doing fine, that's all I need to know. Never heard from him again. He deleted his posts off the forum, so he was gone. Everything was gone. There was no trace of Joe ever again. And I always remember that kind of stuff because you run into these people, and I know other people who've been in the mountains have had those people too, where they get out there, they get lost, they get turned around, or they never really were ever there. And today I could understand with the Google Map guys is they could look at Google Maps and literally think, well, I know, and it's only 2.5 miles to here and this and that, and then they get in the mountains and find that 2.5 miles is more like 4 or 5, and it's very different when you're on the trail because it's not like a sidewalk, and all the difficulties are added in. So I can understand it, but at the same time, you know, he could have been nice enough to at least to say, yeah, sorry, or something to that effect. But that was my story with Joe. A strange and confusing and not quite sure. I pretty much take it as like everyone dismissed the idea of that cross being out there. Years later, I found out Clay Worst talked about he had carved one and how many times he'd seen where people had carved things in the mountains and all. And that's always unfortunate because none of us are, what do you call them, the geological or the stone experts that can tell, definitely date it by looking at it. And man, that wind wants to pick up. But anyways, that's the story for this week. I hope everybody enjoys it. It's like I said, sometimes the stories are kind of more intriguing, sometimes they aren't. Don't know what happened to the guy. He seemed like a really nice guy. And he seemed very talkative and friendly and everything going in. I don't know. And this is long before the television show or any of that. So there was no like, oh, I'm out here with Wayne Tuttle from the TV show or nothing like that. I was just some guy that knew enough about the mountains. And I think he checked around and found that people had told him, Randy and Wayne are the two guys that if you want to go up in the mountains with, those are two good guys to go back in the mountains with. So I think that was his whole rhyme and reason for it. And we would go out and scout for people and do people favors like that, to go out and look at areas and do stuff. So I think he got wind of us that way, and for some unknown reason, he just, whatever the thing is, that wasn't there. Now, I did go out years later and look in the area again and never found anything like that. I couldn't find everything he described, everything he talked about, and even the V saddle thing that he talked about. He kind of even altered that as we were walking. That's always a good sign when someone's story keeps sort of like changing a little, and you're like, well, you just said earlier it was just like this, and there was a boulder on the left, and then they're like, well, no, I don't remember there was a boulder on the left. So that was that. But anyhow, thanks for joining us this week. We're gonna blow on out here somewhere down the road, because it's picking up, man. Damn, it's picking up. I think the camera, I mean, you might see me from a drone shot as the camera just lifts off and takes off in the air. But everybody, please take care. Keep us in your thoughts. Catch us on the Fridays for our special Legend of the Superstition Mountains, and always catch us on Mondays for Chasing Legends. Until the next time, I'm Wayne Tuttle. I'm still here right now before I blow away. You're not, and this was Chasing Legends. Take care.